Hey, what's up? Hello, everyone. Welcome to Fantasy Filmball, the show where we turn movies into sports and sports into something we don't talk about here. My name is Matt.
And my name is Dyl, and today we're doing just that, turning sports into movies, because we're going to look at the past 5 years, do a little bit of retrospective. About a month ago on this channel, we were doing what categories we love to see included at the Oscars, and one of the ones that we mentioned was a stunt and choreography award, and it looks like a lot of other people really want that now after the release of John Wick 4. So what we're going to do is go back for the last 5 years of the Academy Awards, say if they did have this award, what would the nominees be, what would the next in line be, and what would be our eventual winner. So Matt, at least going back to 2023, this last season, what movies really stand out to you that should be in this nomination line? Not what you think would be nominated, but which one would you love to see the most?
Well, if I were to give a nomination for stunts and choreography, it would have to be for RRR. That would be beyond everything else. It's so creative. It just goes above and beyond. It reinvents itself with every single fight. Every single sequence ends with you going, wow, there's no way they can step that up. And then they do. So RRR would be the one I'd most want to see. But before we get into this, I still have reservations with a stunt award. And that's because if it's just called Best Stunts, then we're just going to see it as a popular film category. I have two prospects of what I would like to see a stunt award manifest as. So either Best Stunt Coordination and Fight Choreography, right? Or just Best Stunt Coordination. Calling it Best Stunts makes me feel like people are going to do crazy shit to get the award, which has been an argument against this category for a while. So I'd want it to be about stunt coordination, which is about not just coming up with the stunts, but the act of rigging them and making them safe to do for all. So tell me, what would be your number one from last year? And further than that, what would you like to see out of this award?
So I guess starting off with what I would love to see out of this award is I want to see a mix of both stunts and choreography, because I've seen a lot of people online when they talk about this, they only mention stunts. They only mention stuff like John Wick. They only mention stuff like Mission Impossible. But if you look at this year, we're also going to have The Color Purple, which will probably have dancing. We'll probably have a lot of movement. And I feel like stuff like that should be recognized as well. So to me, looking to last year for what I would love to see nominated, this would not be my winner, but this would be one I would love to see, and that would be Elvis, for how Austin Butler basically matched the moves from real life footage of Elvis Presley to make you feel like, hey, this is really him. I mean, he has the voice, he has the look, but if he doesn't have the body motions, you're not really going to be sold on that. So it wouldn't be my pick to win, but it would be something that I would love to see be nominated.
So in an ideal world, I would want to see dance and movement be recognized here. But that said, I don't know if there's the wide support for that, because every time we see someone mention there should be a stunt award, they're just talking about stunts. They're not talking about dance. Yeah, right.
That's how I feel as well,
because it's so important, and it's such a key aspect of so many of these big films. And like, imagine seeing West Side Story nominated for stunts, and it's just about the fights. It's not about the dancing that they do, which is also like a form of choreography, because that's what stunts are. Stunts are choreography.
To me, I feel like the award should be choreography and stunt design, like how it's makeup and hairstyling. Even though they only look at the makeup, it should be both.
I'm just going to jump in and say I have issue with stunt design because there's no stunt designer, right? Like, it's when you look at best production design, there's a production designer. It's a job on set. If you look at best costume design, there's a costume designer. But there's no stunt designer. There's a stunt coordinator, which is why I'd put forward best stunt coordination as the name of the category.
Good point.
I don't know. It's a semantic thing to take issue with.
So, looking at 2023, last year, you could look at the SAG stunt ensemble and be like, hey, copy that 5 over. That 5 was Top Gun Maverick, Avatar: The Way of Water, Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, The Batman, and The Woman King. But I don't think the Oscars would carry that 5 over, because I think at minimum, Everything Everywhere All at Once gets in. And I think that The Woman King would probably miss out, because ultimately it got no nominations elsewhere. And I think we'll see a trend of, hey, this may be a category where we see a movie get one random nomination when it got nothing else. But Everything Everywhere was the sweeper. It was definitely going to get this nomination at the Oscars.
I would have Everything Everywhere All at Once, Top Gun Maverick, Way of Water, Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, and The Batman. That's 4 of the SAG nominees plus Everything Everywhere All at Once.
So I would have Everything Everywhere All at Once be my number 1. I would have Top Gun Maverick be my 2. I would have Avatar: The Way of Water be my number 3. The 3 Best Picture nominees, they carry over. However, I would include a fourth Best Picture nominee because that would be All Quiet on the Western Front. We saw that the Academy loved it on nomination morning. I think that this nomination would be included for the stunt work that it happens there during the war sequences. So for me, that leaves the fifth slot open, and the Batman's the one that I want, but it did underperform. It missed out on cinematography. It got snubbed from the short list for score. So I think that Black Panther Wakanda Forever would probably get the nomination. However, I wouldn't be surprised to see if the Batman did sneak its way in.
I would think Black Panther would probably make it there. Now, with All Quiet, the interesting thing to think is it's still underperformed in a few categories, right? Like it missed editing and director. Would it make it into stunts? Maybe. I guess I'm just trying to think of what stunts there really are, because it's a lot of gunfire, but not a lot of movement.
There is the battle in the trench. I know that's just one small example, but that would be an example of some type of stunt work. And then I think that if you look at it, I think that the body's flopping throughout, and the times there are physical hand-to-hand combat would be enough for it to get in, just because I think this movie did well with the technical, smaller type nominations where it missed out on like the bigger stuff, like editing, like director. But it did hit like sound, it did hit cinematography, it hit production design. I think this would be one where it comes along with it, but also this movie wasn't as loved as it was on Oscar night as it was on nomination morning. So I could see the Batman at least get in here.
I don't know. I think that this is maybe the first example we see of the potential issue of this category, which would be a lot of the time they would go for movies that they like more than movies that actually have great stunt work. Like, we'd see some questionable choices, I think, where they're just like, we like this movie and it has stunts in it, so let's give it a nomination. So yeah, I do think All Quiet would make it in. I agree with you on second thought.
I think we are both in agreement that Everything Everywhere wins the Oscar with the sweep that happened on the Oscar ceremony night.
Yeah, Everything Everywhere would definitely win. And I'm very sad that we wouldn't have RRR in here. So sad. I mean, this is all hypothetical, so I don't know why I'm sad, but RRR really would deserve that stunt nomination.
I wonder if this would become an award, or if this would be a shortlisted category. Like, would they get 10 and they pick through? Cool.
Totally would. I would think it would have, like, in an ideal world, this wouldn't just be what movie has the craziest stunts, right? In an ideal world, what I would want out of this category is what they do with visual effects or makeup, where they have a bake-off and they have people get up front and give a presentation and say, this is what we did. You know, you've seen the visual effects, but here's a breakdown of exactly what we did. You've seen the makeup, but here's exactly what the process was to make that makeup come to life. What I would want with stunts is for them to do that in the nomination process, where they get a team up there of stunt coordinators and they show BTS footage saying, not only were our stunts crazy, but they were safe. And here's what we did to make these crazy fucking things that we did safe, right? Yeah, Tom Cruise drove a bike off of a cliff. How did we make it safe?
That moves us into 2022, where I'm going to read off our SAG Stunt Ensemble nominees before we give what we predict the Oscars would do. So we had Dune, we had Shang-Chi, we had The Matrix 4, we had Black Widow, and our SAG winner was No Time to Die. And I think that the Oscars would carry at least 3 into it. I think Dune, No Time to Die, and Shang-Chi are safe. And I think even though we're not including choreography, West Side Story still gets in at the Oscars due to the fight stuff. However, I'm left with reaching for what number 5 is. You have Matrix, you have Black Widow, which have the SAG, but also weren't very liked movies either, but I feel this is a category that probably would be critic-proof. And then you have more stuff that you could reach for that has very impressive stunt work, but maybe weren't the biggest movies, like Harder They Fall and Nobody. But I like the one that you end up picking for your number 5.
Yeah, I'd go with Spider-Man No Way Home. In number 5, and the reason being, we'd see a ton of crossover between the stunt category and visual effects. I think those two would correlate, and more often than not, we'd see the visual effects winner probably also take the award here. No Way Home is a big movie. It was very, very widely loved and appreciated, and I really do think it would show up right here.
So to recap our nominees for the 2022 ceremony, we had Spider-Man No Way Home, Shang-Chi, The Legend of the Ten Rings, West Side Story, and that leaves us with the 2 that I'm not really sure where to pick for the win. No Time to Die won the SAG, but I'm leaning more towards Dune for the Oscar just because of how beloved and how many categories that did win it, because No Time to Die, I would say, at least underperformed with nominations on Oscar morning.
More than likely, they'd just go with their favorite and they'd put Dune as the winner. But let's go on to the next year, which is, in my opinion, this is the weirdest year because so many blockbusters were pushed out of 2020. So this is the 2021 Oscars. The SAG nominees this year were Mulan, Da 5 Bloods, News of the World, Trial of the Chicago 7, and of course the winner, Wonder Woman 1984, all of which very weird choices. There's a few there that I'm like, yeah, Wonder Woman makes sense to be a nominee, but a winner? I don't know.
I get the trial nom because they do have fights. There's riots. There's stuff. It's coordination. Is it the most showy work? No, but in this year, it makes sense. But it doesn't make sense when you look at the movie that was snubbed, which would be Tenet, because I feel like that whole movie revolves around its stunt work. But clearly, this just shows how much Tenet was not really campaigned in the award season this year due to the Nolan Warner Brothers beef. So I think that it would still get the Oscar nomination, but I don't know because Tenet did underperform. But I feel like this would be a category where the Oscars would be like, no, we're still going to get it even if you weren't campaigning for it.
Yeah, it would get the Oscar nomination and the win. I think especially because if you look at it, one, visual effects, and this is one where I think that correlation between visual effects and stunts would really show. And the reason being, they get up there and show a presentation of how we orchestrated the stunts. They are going to talk about, look, we had to choreograph these fights to be done both forwards and backwards so that the actors could perform their movements and look like they were in reverse, despite doing it forwards. Or like you have to mesh the stunts together and make it look cohesive when they're both doing different things and fighting someone who's fighting in reverse. That's insane. It's insane. Easy win for this category, and it's a mystery why it didn't make SAG. Not a mystery. It's like what you said. It's the beef between Nolan and Warner Brothers. But I guess if I had to pick my other nominees, I'd go Tenet, Wonder Woman 1984. I do think Trial of the Chicago 7 would still keep its SAG nomination, which I do still find baffling. I would also go News of the World, because that got quite a few tech nominations at the Oscars. And then lastly, this final one is really hard. I think I'd go Mulan.
I would lean more to 5 Bloods to reach a little bit if there was another movie out there that could get a little bit of love. Invisible Man had a lot of buzz before the lockdown for just being a cool, different type movie, maybe visual effects. If there's a stunt category, maybe some stunt love. Would it actually get the nomination? Probably not, but that would maybe be next in line. But as Matt mentioned, this year was very weird. You have 6 top nominees and then nothing really else out there.
I guess if I had to reach, I'd put in Extraction, the one with Chris Hemsworth, which kind of
But
blew
would that be
up
eligible?
over that summer.
But would that be eligible? 'Cause
I think it actually was. I'm just going to look. I'm going to give you that answer in like 5 seconds because I actually have a database of everything that Extraction was eligible for the Oscar that year. So Extraction could be a possible contender.
You know what? I changed my pick then. Extraction is number 5. Netflix were campaigning it for a solo stunt award. That moves us into a year which I think is very interesting. We have our most deepest year, I think, for this category, and that is 2020. Because, I think there's a few ways you can look at this. Our SAG nominees, The Irishman, Joker, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Ford v Ferrari, all Best Picture nominees, all very strong in this category. You have your SAG winner, Avengers Endgame. I think would also be very strong when it comes to the Oscars. However, depending on how you want to look at this, 1917 feels like it would be a movie that does get nominated here at the Oscars. But when you take away the choreography aspect, maybe it does miss. That's probably why it missed the SAG. But also, that movie was very strong at the time of voting, right before voting closed. So maybe it's one where it has a shot, but maybe doesn't. Endgame also feels like kind of a weird winner for the Oscars to pick, but also it doesn't, because I feel like Hollywood, Joker, Irishman kind of all pull from the same voter base. So depending on what that other movie was, whether it's 1917 or Endgame, one of those two maybe could have won, or Ford v Ferrari could have just won because it is the racing movie.
I guess why I say that 1917 would be in here and win, it's the correlation with VFX, which I'm going to keep mentioning. This is an imaginary correlation, but it would happen. But the reason why I think that missed the Stunt Ensemble Award at SAG is because it's a Stunt Ensemble Award. It's about the performers doing the stunts. And I don't think that there was a very strong stunt ensemble in 1917, but the coordination of them is really, really well done. Because are there a lot of huge stunts in that movie? No. But what they had to do was come up with ideas of how to make the stunts flow from place to place, how to orchestrate it, and how to make sure that everyone was doing the right thing at the right time in a safe way. So if it's a coordination award, yeah, 1917 absolutely wins. Absolutely takes it.
Other nominees that would be kind of next in line, but like I mentioned, this year's so top heavy. You have John Wick 3, which, I mean, it's here, but it missed SAG, so I don't really think would overtake anything above it. But yeah, that brings us to 2019, which I think is a pretty easy year. Our SAG nominees were Ant-Man and the Wasp, Buster Scruggs, Mission Impossible Fallout, Avengers Infinity War, and our winner, Black Panther, which I think would also carry over to the Oscars.
But I actually don't think that this is an easy year. I'm looking at it and going, oh my god, I see 3 here that I think are really safe, but I have no idea what else would go into a stunt category here. I think Black Panther is safe, Infinity War is safe, Mission Impossible Fallout is safe, but
I would say Buster Scruggs.
I don't really. I don't know.
It got the
It did
screenplay
well at the
nomination.
Oscars, but what stunts are in that movie? I know it got SAG, but that's weird to me.
To be completely honest, I've never seen Buster Scruggs, but it got a screenplay nomination, so I'm going to carry that in over here because it was liked by the Oscars. I would say they would skip out on Ant-Man and the Wasp, and they would go with A Quiet Place. I don't really know why that missed SAG, per se. I know that's not like showy in-your-face stunts, but there are stunts there, and it's a very popular, very liked movie. But who knows, maybe Creed 2 could have gotten an in here, but also Creed 2 was not a very... I don't know, awards type movie in any sort of fashion, and that only leaves the other possible chance to be Aquaman, which I guess Ant-Man would be stronger than Aquaman because Ant-Man got the SAG.
Okay, I guess the argument for Buster Scruggs would be horses. Riding horses. That would be the argument there. So I will put that in, and I guess I'm going to put Ant-Man and the Wasp as my number 5. I'm just going to stick with the SAG nominees here, and the reason I'll go with Ant-Man and the Wasp is because of some of the stuff, the glitching stuff, with the ghost character in that movie, I think is really interesting, and that would secure it the nomination, I think.
Well, with all that being said, I guess it's only right if we end with a SAG ensemble prediction for this year, because this is not an actual award, so there's no need to predict what the Oscars would do, but more what SAG would do. And I feel like there's a pretty obvious 1A, 1B here. The aforementioned John Wick 4, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning. Would you agree, Matt?
Yes, I would say Mission Impossible has to get in here. That said, they didn't give the last one the win, so I don't think it would win. But that said, it's in for a nomination for sure.
And the last Wick movie didn't get in either, so both of them are sitting here with, like, could this be the time where both these franchises get their first win, or are they both going to lose out? Because we could also have a previous SAG loser, Dune, coming back for Dune Part 2. Indiana Jones, the 4th one, got nominated, so maybe the 5th one gets in as well. Maybe it's its time to win, and I think those are a pretty safe top 4.
Yeah,
I right
top
now have
4, they're
like
strong.
12 type contenders, but I feel like the 4 feels safe in our 5th spot's just like, where do they go? Because The Irishman got in, so Killers of the Flower Moon probably could too, but also maybe doesn't have as much hand-to-hand or combat as Irishman did with it being a gang movie.
Rather than Killers, Guardians of the Galaxy Part 3. The reason being, MCU usually makes it in. Yeah, Guardians of the Galaxy, they haven't been nominated in this category before, but the MCU normally is, and it's not going to be Ant-Man, and it's probably not going to be the Marvels, so I think Guardians is the most likely this year. But they could just go with Killers, right? Because Scorsese got in for Irishman, but that said, Killers of the Flower Moon doesn't have much fighting in it.
You make a great point there. Guardians 3 is probably in because going over those past 5 years, we've had at least one superhero movie get in, with the exception of the Wonder Woman year. A Marvel movie got in all 4 of those other years. So Guardians 3 is up to my number 5 spot, but Killers could maybe be an upset, but more for something like an Indiana Jones, maybe more so than a Guardians.
Yeah, and to be fair as well, there was no Marvel movie released in the year of Wonder Woman 1984.
That is true.
So
good point.
It's very possible that if there was Black Widow there, it would have gotten that nomination that year, because it did get that nomination the next year.
It did,
right?
yes.
So yeah, Black Widow would have made it in that year if it was released. If the Oscars were to do a stunt category, I would probably swap out Guardians with something else. Or maybe swap out Mission Impossible or John Wick. They might do something fucked up if the Oscars were to have a stunt category.
I mean, Killers would be right there. I mean, as long as it has one fight scene, we saw the trial with SAG, it could easily get its way in, especially if you're looking more at an Academy side compared to a SAG side.
Yeah, you might be right. But this is all so hypothetical. This doesn't exist at this moment. It doesn't mean anything. This is just for fun. But you guys got to let us know. Do you want a stunt category? What would you call it? What would you hope for from a category like this? Do you agree with us that dance should be in there too? Because you better. Dance deserves its own award. And thank you so much for watching. As always, my name is Matt.
And my name is Dyl, and this is Fantasy Filmball.